Morning, everybody. Yesterday and indirectly this morning, we heard a little bit about the acceleration in the digitization of all of us over recent times for obvious reasons. But one interesting consequence of the times we've passed through has been an increased realization as consumers that we are in ourselves creating volumes and volumes of data in going about our daily life, and that awareness has really built over the last 18 months. More significantly, I think, the telcos, for telco marketeers, after being fed a diet of data-driven news for so long, not only do they have a great appreciation that they are in themselves data factories, but then actually they now understand that the companies have that data, they can access that data, and they can serve them better as a result. And more to the point, consumers want that improvement and they expect that improvement, and their standards of acceptable performance have risen over the last 12 to 18 months. They now have great expectations of their service provider, their telco, their CSP, and they won't accept the historic approach of mass communications. As consumers, our attention isn't free, and in fact it's the most valuable thing that we spend. And we know from research that over 70% of consumers will only really engage with marketing messages that are customized to their specific needs. And that's because more of us, or none of us, want to fill our lives with the things that pretend to be relevant but actually aren't. And recently, the ICO fined WeBuyAnyCar.com for sending out 191 emails. Put that into context, that is over 6 times the number of passenger vehicles there are in the UK. And I think it's unlikely that these were precisely targeted, relevant, or timely communications, given the volume. But whilst the actions of our regulatory body are significant, they're not the driver of this change in the world. It's the consumer. It's the consumer who is increasingly intolerant of companies that send them irrelevant messages because they've been inundated these past 18 months with badly timed or generic messages, and they demand relevancy. They demand relevancy both in terms of the message you send and the timing of that message. Superficial personalization might have been annoying 12 months ago, but today it's simply unacceptable to consumers. Around 45% of them say that they're less likely to buy from brands that provide impersonal or generic experiences. And the new bar for them is empathy and authenticity and value from every brand relationship. And to win, you need an understanding of your consumers as telcos that's as human as your customers are. And they now know that you have the power to do better. And they expect you to use it. And there will be big winners and losers as a consequence of that realization. If you personalize your communications with your customers well, you can exponentially grow your revenues. These numbers reflect the growth in your revenues per 10 million subscribers. And just by developing or leveraging deeper understanding of your customers, you can grow ARPU by over 20%. But if you bake that enriched understanding across your business, then that growth can double and double and double again. And in the telco market, what you gain, your competitor loses. Almost half of consumers say that they'd shift their loyalties if they don't receive more personalized services in future. But actually it's worse than that, because inadequate personalization driven by inadequate understanding of your customers disenfranchises them. They remove their consents, the relationship is then further constricted, and you fall further behind the A-game companies, and that negative spiral just continues. But what if you could? What if you could provide safe and controlled access to the richness of the data you're gathering? What if you could systematically activate that enriched understanding on demand and at scale? Well, the answer isn't to collect more data. It's to apply intelligence to the data that you're already collecting. And you do that in order to understand its real human significance. And you can do that without compromising on privacy. There's a gap between those that do this well and those that don't. And the first step to closing this personalization gap is to use artificial intelligence to abstract the real human meaning of observed behaviors from the behaviors themselves. The result is clear, and it's a true picture of what matters to every customer. And whilst doing this, you can actually raise privacy controls, which I'll come on to later. But richer human insights won't lead to better customer outcomes by themselves. Their timely activation of relevant data features is as important as the quality of the insights they represent. So you'll need an observe, learn, engage system that will give you real clarity on the outcomes of your actions. Put all together, we call that true personalization. But to be one of the winners, you're going to need to solve a few challenges along the way. There's the challenges to achieve this enlightened state of true personalization are many, but I'll just pick on three for the moment. To be successful, you'll need to use all of your data, all of the available data. That includes some data sets that, frankly, as telcos, you've been historically nervous about using. That means CDRs, billing data, CRM, and weblog browsing data, or if you're a CSP, viewing data. So you'll need a solution to access the richness of that data that's already been proven to be acceptable to regulators in Europe and in the States, and to the brand guardians of those telcos. Of all of your data, weblogs or viewing data is probably the biggest data set that you generate. So how big is big? Well, for Verizon, who are a client of ours, it's many trillions of rows of data. Trillions of rows of data, updated every day. And that in itself is going to lead you to substantial hosting and processing costs if you don't do something about it. And the vast majority of that data is simply noise, which introduces the further challenge of finding the signal from within the data. But if you get this right, then you could, if you can get this right, then you really can make your data fly. We've developed a number of options that enable this massive data set to be processed effectively, including on-premise pre-processing and simple access and egress interfaces that allow the access to those insights, these tokenized, anonymized, encrypted, vectorized insights without significant IT investment. But you've got to make the data workable. And to make the data more workable, every data feature carries with it, within its DNA, within its metadata, its provenance. And that allows you to select what the data can and can't be used for, bringing you greater control than you've ever had before, and protecting the consents of your customers. And given its sensitivity, processing it comes with intense privacy and security requirements. So you'll need to use a multiple of levels of control and multiple AI methodologies to extract signal from the data whilst respecting the consents that you've obtained from your customers and conforming to the regulations either side of the water. And these will need to go way beyond simple anonymization, aggregation, noise introduction, tokenization, encryption, etc., although they're all important in components of a privacy fabric. But you'll need to start thinking about using things like semantically graph graphing the web in where you were operating, and using multidimensional mapping of your customer action data in order to create vectors that are then completely non-personal. You create user context vectors, co-occurrence matrices that preserve privacy whilst retaining the signal in the data. And if you've managed to achieve, dealt with those challenges, then you're going to need an analytics or visualization capability that gives you a customer-centric view of your business. Because if you don't do that, you won't be able to illuminate your progression against your business objectives. You'll need one that brings together data sets from across the breadth of your business and shows familiar operational measures and traditional CRM fields together with enrichments from your AI that add depth to your consumer profiles. One that allows you almost infinite flexibility to interrogate the data, to understand the drivers of performance, and one that puts the data in the hands of business users so that they can easily understand the connection between what they do, what the customers want, and the business objectives they're driving to. Because the consumer only really benefits from your use of their data when it's in the hand of your decision makers. So to summarize, the past 18 months has seen a dramatic increase in your consumers' expectations of you as telcos. They understand that they generate data in going about their daily lives, and they expect you to use it to serve them better. And this includes the managed extraction of signal from sensitive data sets, such as web logs and viewing data, that serve that objective. The winners, like the OTT operators, have overcome these challenges and are winning big. And other telcos, like Verizon and O2 and CBL, will need to do the same if you want to join them. And so to finish on the theme of great expectations, it seems that even Estella, in a reflective conversation with Pip towards the end of the book, realized that she should have made more of the things that she'd had available to her once she'd learned to appreciate their true value. And who'd have thought in the 1860s that Dickens would offer such foresight and wisdom to the world of telcos' big data? Although I'm not certain it's absolutely proven he was thinking about telcos and weblog applications when he wrote those words. But thank you for your attention.